In this video, we'll be talking about cross-country flight planning as it pertains to private pilot license exam prep. Just say, we'll call this one exam prep, and I'll walk you through what's all involved. So we'll select myself as the pilot, and then that's the tail number of the plane I'm training in. We'll select a departure. So I'm training out of Bremerton, which is PWT. And in this case, we can plug in pretty much any airport. We'll just say SCA, which is, let's see, how about Payne Field, which is just a short hop across the water. And we'd select an alternate because that is best practice and required if you're going on an IFR flight. And we can select a date here. We'll put tomorrow. If we looked at the map on like SkyVector, our magnetic variation is about 15 degrees. And we can see our safety score pops up immediately. It doesn't really have enough information. I wouldn't follow it at this stage, but it's saying caution because there's no weather briefing, which is correct. And then we'd want to do our PAVE checklist if you're familiar with it. So are we current? Like if I was, have I flown in the last 90 days? And if I was going to have passengers, have I completed the correct number of landings in the last 90 days for it to be approved? And am I rested? Here's where the I'm safe checklist comes in. So that's illness, medication, I'm going to say sleep, alcohol. This is not good to put myself on the spot like this. There's an F, and then E is like energy or eating. I'll have to check on what the F is later. Is the plane airworthy? Does it have all the required documents? Does it have the airworthiness certificate, the registration, the POH, the operating manual, and then the weight and balance performance numbers? I'm going to say yes, it does. Have we reviewed the terrain? I've lived in this area my entire life, and I know that it's all basically sea level. Bremerton's at 400 feet, and MSL, about 440, and then Seattle's roughly the same. And daylight currency margins, and then external pressures, which in this case we don't have any. This is a training flight, and this is really just an imaginary flight plan for that training flight. So I'm going to say no overriding pressure to complete it. We can mark this phase as complete, the flight overview. So we've just got the high level details, and then we can move on to developing the route. So you can see we have our departure and our destination keyed in, and these will be populated. These values can be populated later. There's a way to suggest altitude. This is actually, let's see if we can get it here. It's thinking about it. Okay, so it suggests 3,500. And so, yeah, we're satisfying the hemispheric rule by adding 500 to the odd because our course is 37.8. So I think that makes sense. We are going to be crossing Class C airspace. And so there will be conversations, two-way conversation with the Seattle Tower. And there's no TFR notes that I'm aware of. And so we can mark this phase as complete. And then we can go ahead and fetch our weather briefing. So you can see we get a briefing not only for our where we're departing from and where we're arriving to, but also our alternate, which is super important. You can't fly without knowing, like, if there's a problem at Payne Field, am I going to be able to make it to BFI? We can expand and get our raw METAR. So, and if you don't know how to read these, this is, at roughly 5, or on the 17th at 1 a.m. Zulu, 1:53 Zulu, so almost 2 a.m. there's looks like saying no wind. I suspect that that's actually an error. So we probably want to double check that, because pane field shows wind is 340 at 7 knots. So I suspect there is some wind, but they may have a reporting issue, although I don't actually see a maintenance indicator. So kind of suspicious. Might be worth double checking. But we do have 10 statute miles of visibility. Skies are clear. The temperature is 23. Dew point is 14. We have specific, the altimeter is 30.12 and then 30.15 for both, or for each respectively. And then for remarks, we have A02 precipitation. Sea level pressure is 199. And then we have some detail. So 023 is the temperature. Sorry, 023.3 is the temperature, and then the dew point is 13.9. So fairly standard. And then we have a TAF down here. So these are our forecasts for different times. We can see it looks like the weather is pretty stable. It's not going to change. Maybe as we get into the early morning hours, Pacific time, we get broken clouds at 25,000 feet. Given that we're flying at, I think, 3,500, not a big deal. We also get some winds aloft. We'll use this in our calculation for compass heading when we get down to that phase. There's also approach plates. We don't need it for PWT, but probably is a good idea to review the approach plates for pane field so that we know what the patterns are, and we can download and review these with minimums and like our go around procedure. So we'll go ahead and so far everything's looking good. Weather's good, aircraft, pilot, environment, external, all good. So I'm going to say good. And I like to quote the weather at this stage just because it's super helpful. So, weather at destination is within VFR. I think it's a pretty solid justification. And so we can proceed to the nav log, and we can actually suggest from our winds aloft data, and that's going to help us do a few things. But in this, you can see we know it's visual flight rules, so our reserve is, and it's going to be, we'll say it's dark, it's nighttime, so an hour after sunset by most definitions. So we need 45 minutes of reserve, and then we can go and calculate our nav log. This will check to see if you have enough gasoline. We can see here that it's a very short distance, and we only have about 2 hours of fuel burn, plus our reserve. That's it's definitely reasonable to think that we can have enough fuel in both tanks to achieve the distance. It's only 30 nautical miles in total distance. So I think, so far our safety score is happy. We've got everything satisfied, checking all the boxes. There's some weight and balance numbers. I don't want to type my weight in front of you, so we'll just, we'll compute it here. I think this number's a little low, but we're within requirements. The plane has a max takeoff weight of 2,300 pounds, and we're well short of that. And I'm not planning to have any passengers or cargo, so I feel like this is pretty safe. We can take a look at performance here. Some numbers would skew this, and we could potentially plug those in, like our if there's a higher density altitude, we might want to triple check if the POH to see what our rolling distance is going to be on when we touch down at Payne Field. But for let's see what we can fill in here. The reason I'm not very concerned is because I normally land on a 6,000 foot runway, and this one that we're planning to land at is 9,000 feet. So well within personal minimums, and definitely well within what would actually be required for an adjusted when we adjust for density altitude. So no red flags there in my opinion. And this is kind of where it ends because filing the flight plan is not really, we don't have that wired up. We could say that we filed it here. And of course the guidance would always be to, get a more up-to-date weather briefing, but I don't think it's going to be more up-to-date than what we just pulled it live. And then we looked at the forecast, the TAF. So I'm going to say that's probably pretty good. And then the last bit is that we, double check the weather, double check the weight and balance, triple check the wind at takeoff and at destination. We would use our checklist to complete the actual plane's pre-flight inspection. And I think the important thing for a cross country, if you haven't done one, is you need to probably, if your radio supports it, configure the tower frequencies both for the controller and for ground, so that you can hand off between the two when you land, and so you can get two-way communication with the tower as you enter the airspace. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, shoot me a message or leave a comment. Thank you.